Episode 47 of Road Noise, How to Handle Adversity in the Workplace. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Road Noise, Life 1 Mile at a Time. I'm your host, Michael Blackston. You're sitting alongside me as I commute all over the Southeast for my work, and we're learning to live life 1 mile at a time. If you hear the rumble of something under my voice, that's just the noise of the road, hence the reason I call it road noise. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to handle adversity in the workplace. While I've been pondering what I wanted to talk about this week, this never really crossed my mind, but then I got a phone call earlier in the day, today, as this is recorded, and my wife was talking about some issues she's having at work, and we kind of talked it through, and I gave her my ear, and I tried to do the husbandly thing, or the correct husbandly thing, and not fix it, but listen and let her vent and let her kind of get her frustrations from a sort of bad first half of the day out. And as I was coming down the road and saying I really need to get a podcast episode recorded, what do I want to talk about? It hit me. I've never talked about adversity in the workplace, and I think that that's an issue that most of us have had at some point in our work lives. I am a boss. I'm a business owner. I run my own company. I'm my own boss, so I really don't have a whole lot of adversity that I can't control. You know, there are issues that happen all the time with any situation that you're in as far as your work, and there are delicate issues that I have to tend to in my role as a business owner. But I spent years, 15 years to be exact, doing jobs I hated, and more than that, I think, when you total up all the time that I've worked as an employee of someone. And so there's been a lot of opportunities for there to be adversity in the workplace. I've got one place that I worked where I had a problem with someone I worked with, though, that kind of stands out as the biggest one for me, and I'm going to tell you the story about that in just a little bit. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what my wife's going through as well. But I think that I do have something to say on this, and I think I have some wisdom to share with you on how to handle that situation and at least make it a little better, maybe fix it a little bit, maybe even solve your problems, because I'm the kind of person that is very upfront and get down to the meat of the matter. And because that's the type of person I am, it's helped me to solve some problems in the past. So let me tell you about one of my work experiences. I've worked in a lot of different situations. I used to call myself one of the most licensed people in the world. I've done everything until I found the job I loved and then started my own company. But before then, when I was working for other people, I did a stint for about 2 to 2.5 years, I think, at a finance company. Now, I'm not talking about one of these major corporations that you see, H&R Block and all of these people that you see on TV that are constantly asking for you to be hire them as your financial advisor and stuff like that. No, it wasn't anything like that. This was a finance company. It was a small loan company. And to be honest, while the money was better than the job I was making right before I got hired there, I was not honestly hired for this job. I answered an ad in the newspaper for a financial company. I was looking for a better job, something with more pay, and it sounded good, so I went on a job interview and was completely lied to by the person in charge about what the job entailed. They made it sound like this was a very important career decision, a beginning step in a career in finance. So I was excited, and I got the job. I won't say the name of the finance company because I don't want to talk negatively about something and then give the name of it. But I am going to say that small finance, there are some that I have worked with in the past when I've needed some loans and things like that were really good, but I could only say that for the branches I worked with, and I've never been behind the little wall and worked with them. I only had the experience with the ones that I worked with, and I only worked for one, but I kind of worked in cooperation in this small town with some of the other companies as we dealt with some of the same clients. Anyway, my whole point was it was a whole different ball of wax from what was explained to me. This is not the beginning of a career in financial banking or any of that stuff. Small loans are basically giving small loans to people who have small incomes and have a hard time paying it back. That's for the most part what you're dealing with, at least in my experience. In this finance company, I was going to start as an assistant manager. They were going to train me as an assistant manager. That sounded great. The problem was, basically, assistant manager was a title given to someone who calls and bothers people all day, every day to collect. I was a collections agent, and there were some customers who were so far behind, my job was to go to their homes. I even had some customers I had to go to their work. I hated that job from day one. Let me say right now, if you're somebody who's had dealings with bill collectors and stuff like that, I hated that job from day one because of the way I had to, my job description, I had to talk to people. Money talks, though, and the pay was halfway decent, and for the first time in my married life, I was actually making the bills. So I stuck with it for a couple of years, and I ended up managing a branch. But before I was a branch manager, I went a long way around to tell you this story. One of my managers was a young man, about my age, but a little bit younger than me, I think, who had worked his way up and was really good as a collector, and he had worked his way up to be a branch manager, and this was the first time he was going to manage a full branch. And he was brought in because we had just lost our branch manager, and they were replacing him. And I, at the time, either wasn't eligible or they didn't feel I was right for it. I can't remember. I didn't get offered the job. But anyway, this gentleman came in, and it turned out really quickly that I understood he's a party animal. He was the kind of guy who was really loosey-goosey around the office, not a whole lot of rules, and that was good for us on some things because it made for an easy work environment during the day. But then issues would come along and his partying would get in the way. His mouth would get in the way. He was one of these people that thought he was all that and a bag of chips, to show my age. He and I did not get along. I'm a very conservative Christian. I'm also a very by-the-books kind of guy. I enjoy life. I like to have fun. I tend to be one of the funnier people in my family that likes to crack jokes and stuff. But work is work, and I believe in a good work ethic, and I believe in doing things the right way. This gentleman cared only for himself. And that became painfully obvious in a couple of situations. Well, one evening, he and I were having to go out chasing, which is when you go out to people's houses, and we do this after 5 o'clock, after the doors shut down, when we try to catch people at their dinner tables. People that had not paid their bill for several months and would not return our calls, just would not communicate with us at all. Our last choice was to go visit them, or try to. And we had done what we were going to do, and we were going to call it a night, and we had probably had about 20 miles left to go to get back to the office. And he stopped at a convenience store and asked, did I want anything? I said no. I stayed in the car. He comes back, and he's got what he called a 40. He just, I guess, a 40-ounce bottle of beer in a brown bag, and he sat it next to him in the dashboard. That's fine. I knew he was a drinker. He was a heavy drinker. He was constantly talking about going home and getting drunk before he came into work the next day. He would get drunk the night after, a hard day's work as part of what he liked to do, and, that was his business. I figured that's what he was getting ready to do. So he puts the bag next to me in the center console and pulls out, goes down the road, and all of a sudden he pulls the beer bottle out of the bag, opens it, and starts drinking. He's driving. So I obviously said, what are you doing? He said, what do you mean? I said, you're drinking while driving. He said, I ain't gonna get caught. And I said, yeah, you will. If we get pulled and they smell alcohol on your breath, they're going to check this car and see that you have an open container of alcohol, and then you and I are both going to jail. He said, you're not drinking. I said, it doesn't matter. If you're in a car with open container, you can be charged. I told him, you got to throw that out. He said, what? I said, you got to throw it out. We got to stop somewhere and throw it out. Now, I hate litter. But at the same time, I didn't know what else to do. I said, you're either going to put me out of this car or you're going to throw that bottle out the door. So he pulled over and he chunked it. And I hate that because I don't, like I said, I don't believe in littering, but I wasn't about to be in a car with someone who, A, is drinking to begin with. It's dangerous. But B, someone with an open bottle, an open container. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to have that on my record. From that day, our relationship was different. I'd made him do something he didn't want to do. I'd made him waste his money on that beer. And I don't know what you think about that. I assume most people listening to this podcast would be sane enough to understand I was in the right there, but he didn't like it. And from that moment on, he had decided that I was just too goody-goody for him and that he was going to do everything he could to make my life miserable while we were there. So that's the first part of that story. But a little bit later on towards the end of my career in this finance company, I got tickets for me and my wife, and I bought tickets for his birthday for my nephew to go see Les Miserables at Greenville, at the Peace Center in Greenville, South Carolina. It was going to be an 8 o'clock show in Greenville, and we were going to need a couple of hours, 3 or 4 hours to get home, get ready, get to Greenville, get in our seats and everything. When we go to these shows, we like to make a big day of it. So I had planned this well in advance. My manager, this guy, knew it well in advance, and I had told him I was going to leave at 4 o'clock to give myself time to get home, get ready, and us get there. I said, I need to leave an hour early. He said, no problem. I told him this 2 months ahead of time. I told him again in a month. I told him again 2 weeks before. Everything was fine. He knew it. In fact, he got to the point, Michael, I know you're going to be leaving at 4 on this day. Well, lo and behold, the company calls a meeting between all of the branch managers in the county next to us. It was about a 30-minute drive from where he was supposed to be, and he was going to be there. The meeting was supposed to be over at noon. He would have had 3.5 hours to get a half hour back. And I told him then, I said, remember that I've got to leave at 4. He said, that's fine. It's going to be over by 12. Don't worry about it, Michael. I know I've got to be back here. So 12 o'clock came, 1 o'clock came, 2 o'clock came, 3 o'clock came, and 3 o'clock came, and he still wasn't there. And I had already called the manager from the same company in the town next door. We did business with them all the time, and I knew her really well, and she said, that meeting's been over since noon. I said, okay. He was supposed to come back here. She said, well, he said something about he was going to go out and go to a bar with a friend of another one of the branch managers. And I said, he said, what? She said, he said he was going to go out and take the rest of the day and go to a bar. So I didn't say anything to her, and I waited. 3:30 came. He still wasn't there. 4 o'clock came. I called the district manager and told him, I've got to leave. This guy's not here. He knew this. I explained the situation to him. I said, I got to leave. I can't. I've got people waiting on me. I've got to leave. The district manager told me, you can't do that. We're open till 5. I said, you deal with him with that. And I was ready to just deal with consequences, to get fired if I had to. You can imagine at this point, I was livid. So, told the secretary, good news, you get off at 4 o'clock. We shut the doors and told them sorry. Something unexpected happened. Left a note on the door that said, sorry, something unexpected happened, and we had to shut down early. We'll be back open tomorrow at regular time. So I went to my play, enjoyed it, was ready for a fight when we got in the next day. Came in. This manager walks in the door. I was already there early. He walks in the door. I said, where were you yesterday afternoon? He said, that's my business. I said, no, it's my business, because you were supposed to be here at 4. And he said, I didn't want to come back at 4. I said, we've been going over this. You've known this for 2 months. We've been going over this. I've made sure you were aware of it, and I even made sure you were aware of it as you were walking out the door, and you said, I know, Michael, I'll be here at 4. He said, well, I'm the boss. I didn't feel like coming back at 4. I don't care what you've got to do. So I explained to him that, well, he better care because he's probably going to get a call from the district manager today because I closed up early. And when I told him I'd closed up early, he started fussing at me. You can't close up early. You can't do that. You're not supposed to blah, 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 blah. And I stopped him and I said, look, y'all deal with this how you want to. I'm going home. I said, you call me and let me know if I've got a job to come back to in the morning, but I'm not dealing with this because you and I are getting ready to rumble. So I walked out the door, got a phone call from the district manager, said to come back to work in the morning. Everything had been worked out. I got an apology once he realized what all had gone on. The district manager was actually on my side in this, and it worked out okay, but workplace adversity happens. Now, quickly, my wife is having a problem right now. She's the head teller at a bank. I can't tell you where, and I won't tell you where, but she is. She's got 2 people under her, 2 of the other tellers, who are giving her fits. They're acting like children, and she has done everything she knows to do to try to make it right. But it's creating a problem that upper management is going to have to fix because she has done everything she can, and upper management is on her side. So what do you do? So I've made short stories long now. What do you do? Get to the meat of it. Well, I think you've got to ask yourself some honest questions. I think you've got to be honest with yourself. And the first one is a biggie. Am I the problem? Ask yourself that. I mean, do you relate poorly with the people around you? Are your coworkers not liking you because of something you're doing and you don't even realize it? That could be a problem. Maybe you're socially awkward and you just kind of come across the wrong way. You don't mean to, but it comes across that way. Well, you got to understand that the people you work with, if that's the case, I'm not saying it is, but if it's the case, the people you work with aren't going to understand that. Are you too blunt? Do you keep a sharp edge on everything you say and every subject? Or do you round it off so it doesn't cut as deeply? Are you too opinionated? Do you offer opinions that nobody asked you for? I can tell you that will give people a bad taste in their mouth. Are you selfish? Do you do little menial things that would irritate people? Do you leave the refrigerator door open? Or that's not even really something selfish-wise. Do you drink the last cup of coffee without remaking a new pot? That last one's kind of small and nitpicky, but it will rub the people the wrong way. So ask yourself a very tough question from the beginning. Number 1, am I the problem? And so if you're not the problem, if you're not the reason that things are going bad, are you making things worse by your reactions to them? Are you defensive? When people say something to you that's not necessarily positive, do you go on the defensive? Are you too thin-skinned? Too sensitive? Keep those things in mind because you may need to calm down a little bit. Even if you're not the problem, the way you're handling them is just adding salt to the wound. Okay, so I'm not the problem. And I'm not too sensitive. I'm not, too defensive, but I do want to fix it. What can I do to fix or at least help the situation? I think there's 7 things. There are actually a lot of things you can do, but I'm going to only list 7. The first 7 that came to mind, if you actually contemplate this, you can probably come up with a whole lot more than that. But I came up with 7 because I like the number 7. So I'm going to go with 7 of them. Number 1, consider the cause. If you're having a problem with someone or multiple someones, consider what's going on behind the scenes. They may be having problems, especially if it's an individual person. There may be something going on at home that you can't see that is creating stress in their life, and that's coming out at work. And so in those situations, you need to be merciful. You need to be understanding. You may not ever know what the reason is, but at least you can say, because I don't know, because this is dark to me, I don't want to add to their stress. So I'm going to take the things they say in stride. I'm going to take the things they do in stride and just kind of deal with it and try to be a friend to them. Number 2, be willing to compromise. Sometimes things in the workplace are because people are butting heads on an issue. So look for a compromise and see if the other person can help you with that or would be willing to come to meet in the middle with you on something. They may not be willing to do that, but you at least be willing to compromise in situations where compromise is acceptable. In some things, like with my wife works at a bank. You have to go by the book at a bank. They have rules and regulations that are federally mandated. You can't break the rules. There's no compromise in a lot of situations at the bank. It's black and white. It is what it is. It is by the book. And my wife, because she is so staunchly by the book, that's one of the reasons that she tends to get pushback when she deals with people and fellow coworkers, because she just is one of those no-nonsense, by-the-book types of people. So it may not be possible to compromise, but where it's possible, be willing to. Number 3, be willing to forgive and forget. You got to remember that we're dealing with people. We're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with emotional stress. Everything that goes on in your life is going on, and maybe to a worse degree, in theirs. You got to remember that. It goes back up to number 1 in considering the cause. So you've got to be willing to forgive and forget. And that is one of the hardest things to do. I've got an episode coming up one of these days called Permission to Forgive. And we're going to go a whole lot deeper into types of things that need to be forgiven than just somebody saying the wrong thing at a bank or wherever you may work. But that does work all the way around. You got to be willing to forgive and then forget about it. Don't hold it in, because that becomes what? A grudge. Grudges help nobody. So be willing to forgive and forget. That's number 3. Number 4, be willing to apologize. You ain't perfect. And you may have to apologize, or you may need to apologize. Nobody has to. Nobody can make you apologize. But if you really want to make things work in the workplace and you've got some adversity there, if there's anything that you need to apologize for, then you need to apologize. One of my key strategies for fixing situations and finding out what the problem is, because a lot of times, and this has been the problem with my wife at the beginning of this situation, we pretty much know what it is now, but at the beginning of this situation, she didn't know what it was. And sometimes you run into that. You just know somebody's having a problem with you and you don't know what you did wrong. That's an awkward situation. What do you say? How do you go about it? Well, I told you that I'm one of those people that just jumps right in. My strategy is to ask someone, is there something I need to apologize for? That breaks them down. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more in another item on this list, because I'll go a little bit more into detail with it because of the title of that item. So just be willing to apologize. Number 5, always take the high road. You're dealing, again, with people, with emotions, with stress, and you're also dealing with irresponsible and immature people many times, grown-ups who never grew up. Sometimes there are employees that you work with that are not very far out of childhood, and even in situations where, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids are working, you're still dealing with kids. So always take the high road. Understand that you have no control over what anybody else is going to do, but you have complete control over what you do and say and how you think. So take that high road. Be the better man. Number 6, converse one-on-one to find a solution together. Do not argue. You'll notice I said converse. Have a dialogue. And this is the one I was talking about. I'll go a little bit deeper into that little strategy that I told you about. I'll ask someone calmly and sincerely, not with the smirk on my face and sarcasm in my voice, but sincerely, is there something that I need to apologize for? Here's why. it does two things. If there sincerely is something that you have done or said that has hurt someone's feelings, it opens the door to talk about it and gives you the opportunity to make the apology and gives them the opportunity to explain it to you where you may not have understood from the start. You don't know what you did wrong, you're about to find out. If you did do something wrong, you'll find out. Okay? And then you can make your apology sincerely, because if you did do something wrong, you need to apologize. It's the right thing to do. But the other thing that it does is sometimes people are just petty and they don't like you because they don't like you. They don't even have a reason. They can't tell you why. They just, something about you they don't like. And that's a problem with them, not a problem with you. So what going up to someone and saying, look, I'd like to know if there's something that I need to that I've done that I need to apologize for. Have I said or done something that I need to apologize to you for? What that does is it breaks down that wall, and they are forced then to tell you either what you did, or if there is nothing you've done wrong, to come clean about it. And they'll then say, it'll make them have to face the fact that they're giving you grief for no reason. It shows them a mirror. It makes them look in the mirror and say, this person has noticed the way I'm treating them, and I have no reason for it. So they either have to tell you what you did, or say, no, you've not done anything wrong. Then you can dialogue with them and tell them, I just kind of thought there was maybe some tension there between us, and I just want to make sure, because I like to get along with people, and it breaks my heart to know that I've done something I need to apologize for, and if I needed to, I wanted to. It breaks down anything that they've got that they're hiding behind in that situation. I love to use that because it just puts it right out there. Again, they either have to tell you what you did, or they have to look at themselves in the mirror and tell themselves you've done nothing. So that is number 6. Converse one-on-one, don't argue, but find a solution together. And then finally, number 7, mind your own business and do your job. That may seem a little harsh. It's not, though. What I mean by that, if you've done everything that you know to do, and there is a problem, but it is not your problem, it's their problem, it's just you're involved with it because they're putting you there, but there's nothing you can do, then all you can do is just ignore them and mind your own business, do your job. Don't try to fix something that can't be fixed. Because here's the reality of it. Sometimes you'll do all you can do and the problem never finds a resolution. If you've done all the right things, it's probably beyond your control, so be okay with it or seek other employment if the situation is that bad. If you've got a situation that is so bad you can barely stand it, and you've done everything you can and it is just going to be horrible for you and there's nothing you can do, it's all the other people, maybe it's time to find other employment. Because I do believe that you can make things worse at home, you can make things worse health-wise if you're in a situation that is just horrible and toxic like that. That's when you're in a toxic situation. So maybe you need to find a way to get out. Maybe you need to start looking in the paper and going on interviews on your lunch break, and then just make a lateral move. Or maybe you'll be blessed enough to be able to make a vertical move. So those are 7 ideas on what I think you can do to handle adversity in the workplace. And again, it doesn't mean they're all going to work. It's just avenues you can take. And if you are having a problem, definitely think on it. Spend some time trying to figure out what you can do to make life better. Because if you make life better for everybody around you, you may find some great friends you never thought you'd have, and at least you can make your life better, because we all have to make a living. Those 7 things were: consider the cause, because it could be something at home or in their life that's causing them to lash out and react the way they're acting. Number 2, be willing to compromise. Number 3, be willing to forgive and forget. Don't just forgive. That's not good enough. Forget it. Number 4, be willing to apologize. It's a hard thing for people to do. It makes you face humility when you're saying you were wrong and you apologize, but be willing to do that. Number 5, always take the high road. Number 6, converse one-on-one, not arguing, but one-on-one, dialogue to find a solution together with whoever you're having a problem with. And then number 7, mind your business and do your job. Just do the job that is in your description. Make sure that they can't point a finger at you when problems arise. And if part of the adversity is with your boss, I highly suggest a closed-door meeting with that number 6 conversing, and you ask the boss, what is it that I'm not doing in my job that you don't like? Because I want to fix this. I want to do my job to the best of my ability and to the best profit of this company. Your job, if they're your boss, if they're worth their salt, will appreciate that and will tell you what it is you need to do to enhance your performance and what it is that is causing some sort of friction between you and them in the workplace. And in this episode's positive review, I'm going to tell you about a show that has got me just addicted. When I find it in one of my hotel rooms, they tend to play several episodes back to back, and I can just waste an entire night watching this show. I guess you wouldn't call it waste because I enjoy it, but I'm not being productive. I'm watching TV, and I like to be productive. But if this show catches me, I'm caught for the duration, unless I've seen the episode before. And even then, sometimes I just watch it again because it's absolutely hilarious to me. This may be a guy thing. It's called Impractical Jokers, and the TV station that you'll catch it on is True TV, TRU-TV. That's the channel. You'll find Impractical Jokers, and what it is 4 guys who've known each other all their lives, and they dare each other. It's a hidden camera show, and they dare each other to do things and say things to people on the street and the mall. Just they basically play truth or dare without the truth. It's just dare. The thing is, if you fail, if you refuse to do what they tell you while, they're sitting back, everybody's got an earpiece and they're recording you and they're watching from a distance and they've got microphones telling you what to say and what to do, and then you've got to do it. If you don't, you lose that round. The person who's lost the most at the end of the round has to do a practical joke, have one played on them, and do whatever the other 3 tell them to do in a really bad situation, and they must do it. They can't refuse. That's the punishment for losing that episode. It, to me, is hilarious. Now, it's not for necessarily the entire family. I would say probably, TV 14 is probably the youngest I would allow. My kid, I probably wouldn't let him watch it just because some of the language and things they do. They don't do a whole lot. They just have a little bit of coarse language, which most of the time they bleep, but it can get coarse and a little bit vulgar. It's not the worst thing you've ever seen on TV, but it's also not the Cosby Show. So it's rough around the edges a little bit because it's 4 young guys doing practical jokes and making each other do the stupidest thing they can think of. And so some of it's a little bit shocking, but I can't get enough of it. So that's going to be my positive review for this week. If you like that type of thing and haven't watched Impractical Jokers, go watch it. I think you'll like it. It's on True TV, and if you'd like to check it out, their website is truetv.com. That's TRUTV.com/impracticaljokers. Go check it out. I like it. So that's this episode of Road Noise. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to get in touch with me, here's how you do it. I have an email address. It's feedback@michaelblackston.com. You also can call the voicemail hotline at 706-408-7456. And if you like this episode and you'd like to hear more, the best way, easiest way to have it right at your fingertips is for you to subscribe. And you can do that by going to the webpage at roadnoisepodcast.com. There's an iTunes button there. You can subscribe through iTunes. You can also look at your favorite podcast player and just look Road Noise Podcast, Life 1 Mile at a Time with Michael Blackston. However you want to look it up, you should be able to find me. We're on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Stitcher, iTunes, any of those places you can generally find us. So go ahead, look it up, and subscribe that way. And lastly, I would love for you to spread the word and help me to grow. The best way for you to do that is just to share it. There are share buttons on the website. Again, roadnoisepodcast.com. You can share on Facebook, Pinterest. Pinterest is a great way I would love for you to share on Pinterest and pin the podcast there. I'm doing that now with every episode I pin to my Facebook page or Pinterest page. But also share us tweet us out, share us on Facebook, all that good stuff. Help me to grow, tell other people about it, because that's the best way. Because if they trust you, then they'll trust me, and that's what I want. I want to build my relationship with you guys and your friends. I want to become my friends, and maybe everybody can sit beside me in the passenger seat on my commute. I'm Michael Blackston. See you next episode. Bye-bye.